How are you feeling?
Feeling great.
It's good to have you here. So the video we all just watched there was in Israel. So JD, tell us a little bit of a story about that performance and what that event was.
Yeah, well, that was it was an incredible experience. It was kind of bizarre because we toured Israel and we opened it up for anyone to join us. But the cool thing about that performance was it's the first time we ever played that song Wonder live.
Was there any mistakes that we just didn't notice in that live performance in the video?
Did you notice any?
I wasn't scrutinizing it. I wasn't really being too
notice
analytical,
any?
but I mean, it sounded
There wasn't
good.
any mistakes. There probably was. I don't
If we looked like we were happy and enjoying ourselves, we were probably more like ducks on water, to be honest, making sure we didn't stuff it up. But it actually was really enjoyable finally sharing what we've been working on. So it was cool.
And that was a performance that was part of like an 8-day excursion, you were telling me. So what exactly was that? I know you were telling me just a little bit about it a few minutes ago and it really blew my mind. So I want to hear about it and hear about the kind of people that went and what exactly went down.
Well, I mean, it was, I think our life is kind of sometimes very much wrapped up in what's happening today, where are we? And I often joke that we don't really have too much of a plan, haven't from the get-go. I think our story, how we have got to here, has been one that's very organic and kind of full of surprises. I think we ended up in Israel. We were there for a while. There was like a bunch of tours happening, but we went 12 months ago.
Okay.
And we recorded a project kind of all around the land there. We spent time in Palestine. We met with a bunch of people, had some really interesting conversations. And for us, it was just a learning experience. I think when you live on the other side of the world, we grew up in Australia, you live here, you view what's happening in other places just through the lens of what you're fed on the news.
Yeah.
And so for us, I know personally, it was about actually kind of wanting to go and just see it for ourselves and experience it. And, you know, I think Israel's an amazing place. It's fascinating for so many reasons because it means so much to so many different people. The actual place, the land, like Jerusalem, for example, it's amazing, but it feels a little bit like Disneyland, you know? So it's like, I don't know, this is, because, you know, it's you've read about a place and you've actually built your life around so much that's happened in a certain place. And then when you're there, you're like, it's just geography, you know? Like, so, but I know it matters so much to people, and so that's interesting to us because people matter to us, and we want to understand what matters to people.
And was that your first time there?
It was, yes. Yeah. So we've been there twice now, and
Okay.
it still fills us with wonder, for lack of a better word, every single time.
Yeah.
Because you see things you didn't see the first time, and you meet new people, and it's interesting and amazing, and yeah, it was definitely an experience.
The clash of cultures is the best. Like, it's just not the clash, like, excuse me. I mean, like just the mixture.
Yeah.
The melting pot of
Cacophony,
people.
the smorgasbord of cultures. You were saying wonder, right? And you were saying it was a wonder, it opened your eyes. So obviously the new album is called that. There's going to be so many times where you're going to be like, pardon the pun not intended. But this, of course, is it. And it is the 6th studio album. Tell us a little bit about, I know that all your albums have different themes, do they?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we're probably a little bit old school in the sense of like, I really like the idea of an album being a project of 12 songs and it all kind of telling a story in its own way. And
it's only old school, really, considered old school maybe in the past year.
Well,
like recently EPs and single releases have become
No,
very
you're
trendy.
right.
But only in the past 12 months, so you're still
and
very
you know,
on
if
point.
If you're a music lover, if you know, like we talked when we sat down to start the record, we had no idea kind of where it was going to land. It was a conversation about, you know, why did we fall in love with music in the first place? Why do we believe what we believe? Like, what was it that led us to this place to begin with? And kind of trying not to get familiar with any part of this and any part of the story. I think it's really easy for us, especially as you journey through life, as you get older and mature, you experience more. You're less fascinated by things, and you can become more kind of limited in our worldview, which I think is, you know, the problem to so much that we experience in life today. So, you know, when we were sitting down, I'd be sitting down flicking between cable news networks and kind of just trying to figure out up from down and left from right and all the rest of it. And then I've got a 3.5-year-old son, and he'd just be running around oblivious, wanting to be Batman. And I'm thinking, and at what point in life do we like lose this sense of imagination and curiosity and, you know, looking at the world not through a lens of everything that's wrong with it, but through a perspective that allows us to kind of see beyond our limited worldview and actually see the beauty, even in kind of some of the rough stuff and in some of the tension and so forth. I think there's more beauty to be found in the world and in people than we often allow ourselves to see.
And is that usually how the album process works, then, that you kind of think of a theme and then write the songs within it? Or you thought, okay, Wonder, that's like a good way to go, and then did the 12 tracks come after that, or were there some percolating anyway?
No, Wonder kind of was just a word we kept coming back to. And it was much more, the process was actually, like I was saying, kind of more nostalgia. And to what we were just talking about before, we talked about like the first time we listened to music and the first records we ever kind of fell in love with. And, you know, I remember sitting there and saving up $30, because that's what a CD cost when I was a teenager. $30 in Australia. I'd have to wash like 5 cars, mow the lawns, you know, like sell lamingtons, which is an Australian food that you sell door to door. And
Girl Scout cookies.
Yeah, and
we
then,
know, Joe.
And
we
then you get 30. You know, maybe I'd get $15. My friend would get $15 and be like, "All right, man, like, what's it going to be?" And you go down to the record store and you're flicking through and you're listening to them on the headphones and you're like, "What's it going to be?" And when you argue over it and you're like, "It's going to be this one." And then, all right, you can have it for a few days, and then I'll have it for a few days and dub it onto my cassette tape. And hide it in a you know, one of my mum's Christian cassette tapes so that she didn't know what it was, and then, you know, that's.
So what would those songs be? So you grew up like listening to Christian music, but would you often like kind of like segue and listen to your own stuff? What were you interested, all of you, when you were younger in?
Yeah, well, in Australia anyway, the Christian music kind of didn't really exist, and so I'd listen to whatever's on the radio. I know. My dad was a massive Eagles fan, and Beach Boys would be playing on every road trip. But then when I could kind of get my hands on music, it'd be like punk rock, like Blink-182 was just my bread and butter. What I'd listen to at the bus stop waiting every day going, this is amazing.
Mine was Vitamin C.
Oh,
Friends Forever. Great hit.
Song.
It was the first CD I ever bought with my own money as well, saved up. And then just whatever was playing on the radio. Sometimes you get like the 80s hour, and I was like, oh my gosh. But then you'd make it through, and then you get the top 40. And definitely the Beatles as well. My dad had a turntable, and he would always put that on, but he'd put it at like a ridiculously loud volume early on a morning just to wake us up. And I'm like,
it's a good alarm clock.
I know, it was
better
quite
than
lovely.
what we have now. What about you?
Oh, yeah, I mean, my dad, he had all these records, so it was Dire Straits and like Phil Collins and Don Henley and all that kind of stuff, Peter Gabriel. But then what really kind of messed me up was, I mean, I was a child of the 90s, so Soundgarden and Smashing Pumpkins and Nirvana and Pearl Jam and all that good stuff, and you know, cargo pants and flannels and Doc Martens. That was my teenage years.
Ever the stylish
awesome.
man, still known for your iconic.
I tried to turn it up today, but
started from the beginning.
You know. It was everything, and you know, the funny thing about it is, like, nostalgia is an amazing thing. You only experience nostalgia, I guess, when you come full circle.
Yeah.
When you get old enough, basically.
Yeah.
And so I laugh now because I see all these kids walking down the street with Nirvana t-shirts, and I'm like, do you even know? You know. But then I was wearing Joy Division t-shirts. I had no idea what that was back then. You know. And I think there's, you know, culture is perpetually kind of reinventing and reimagining what's already been. And so that was actually really compelling to me, because I think the problem, again, we probably wrestle a little bit with Christian music and the bubble that exists with it. And but we also understand that this is what we're trying to be true to what we believe to be true. And I think every artist that's ever inspired me at the end of the day was honest and was trying to write something or create something out of whatever their convictions were. And you know, when we were growing up, I remember, like, we tried to do all this stuff, and at the end of the day, like, I found myself unable to write about anything other than what ended up being the most important thing to me. And so we're still doing that now. But having said that, you know, all these years later, I think it's a challenge for us to kind of be able to go, we're writing songs to put in people's mouths to sing. Yeah. And that to me is like, it's an incredible gift and opportunity. It comes with great responsibility. And I love that music can change an atmosphere. I love that music is subversive. I love that it has the ability to kind of connect with parts deeper than us and kind of bypass all that we think and process through us, you know, our brains. So that to me is why I love doing it. And it's one of those things where we're just kind of seeing where it takes us. But the nostalgia side of it is I think it's a powerful tool when it comes to a message that is essentially timeless. It's lasted the test of time. And where it goes wrong is often when people try and appropriate it to fit into the culture. And I don't think I think the message is better than that. I think the message is actually good news. And it's, if people knew, what I believe the message of Jesus to be, not what religion has made it or what we often make it, and trying to make it something that fits our worldview or our thinking, I think people would have a very different perspective of who God is.
Like, I was asked to do this interview about a week ago, and it was funny because a few weeks previously to that, I'm really into Apple Music, and I always go on, like, what are the new releases? What are the ones they're talking about? And I would listen I put my headphones in and just, whatever, walk along and listen. And there was a song that came on, and I was like, oh, this song, I felt like so uplifted, and I really tend to like these, like, uplifting ballads. And I would usually do that, and if I liked the song, I would, like, add it to a playlist. And I looked at it, and it was Shadow Step by you guys off this album. And it really kind of, I was like, this is Hillsong United, like from like the Hillsong church, and I was like piecing it together. And of course, then I went and listened to the album, then I was asked to do this interview, so it was like an interesting series of events. But how often does that happen for you guys, where you would hear people telling you that they just heard your music in a very mainstream environment like Spotify or Apple Music, and then have they like researched the church or become part of the church or at least spoken to you about it?
Yeah, I've had a couple of those things, because social media connects people that, you know, could be on opposite sides of the world. And I've had a couple of people say, hey, I'm not necessarily a Christian, I'm not really sure what I believe, and I'm figuring that out, but your song came on a Spotify playlist, and same thing, exactly what you said, just I listened to it and I felt better than I did before, and it just made me feel happy, and I just feel a bit lighter, and I'm just interested to like hear other music, and do you have any other stuff, and could you just point me in the direction where to find it? And I think that's kind of awesome, and kind of the point of what music should do for people, that it should encourage them, and then they should feel inspired with whatever's in their hand, that they would go forth and just give it everything that they have. And so I love that. And it's someone who may not necessarily believe what I believe, but they can hear the message and that they can feel uplifted, then that's the best thing ever.
Yeah. And then even to turn it a 180, though, do you ever hear stories of people like hearing this music and really liking this music, and then they find out that it's associated with Hillsong Church, and they're like, oh, and it's like if they're not really religious or they're not very spiritual, they might like find it off-putting or not pursue it more. Does that ever happen? And is that like a challenge, say, that your group faces?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in Australia, you know, like I said, there's not really a big Christian subculture, which I'm grateful for, because we never kind of grew up with it. And it's always been a bit of a wrestle having to kind of live within these confines. But that's okay. Like, I understand we're not going to try and be anything we're not. And we're grateful for the opportunities we have. But, you know, in Australia, there's a youth network. It's a government-funded youth network. It's, you know, nationwide, and everyone grows up on it. And, you know, because they don't have to worry about advertising, they just play great music. And, you know, so there's one guy there. I've always, you know, been inspired by him. And you know, I heard him say once, because there's other people who are in our church who make great music that is not Christian, it's just great music. And if he finds out they're from Hillsong, he'll just be like, we're not playing you, you know? And I've heard him say to a friend of mine now he's blown up in Australia, he said, yeah, no, I mean, we would never play anything from Hillsong. And I actually understand it. Like, I understand why, you know?
Yeah.
Because
you give them, like, the answer. They're probably wanting you to battle back and fight for it. And then you're like, it's okay. But no, give us a fight, Joel.
But it makes sense. You know, and for me, it's never been about trying to force what we believe down people's throats. And I don't believe that that's actually what Jesus did at all.
Yeah.
He was the opposite. He was actually about trying to connect the margins. He was about trying to reach people who'd been ostracized by the religious. And so, you know, I think why I love music is because it is actually something that is, you can just put out there.
Yeah.
And if you just take it or leave it, you know? And I think it's cool. Spotify has been huge, and the other platforms, because, okay, radio, traditional radio, oh, it's a Christian band, well, it can go on a Christian radio station.
Yeah.
If it's, you know, a news network or whatever, it's like, oh, Christian, okay, you can go to a Christian news network. And it's always been a little frustrating, because I feel like it's just inhibiting. It's like being told you can't.
They put you in a box when it doesn't necessarily belong there, because it's For example, like it randomly comes up on someone's playlist, if it's taken out of that box, and then anyone could really like it. You don't have to, I like Christian music, Christian rock, let me go check out what's new. It should be just like any genre.
Yeah, and
allowed to break out of its platform.
And technology, funnily enough, has really helped that, because it's allowed people, based on listening experiences, algorithms or playlists, for the music to kind of find its way into places that traditionally would have been a brick wall. And I think that's really cool. And if people don't like it, they can delete it.
And to backtrack a little bit, though, what were the reasons why they wouldn't play it? When you say I understand why, what would they say? What was the reason?
Well, I understand it from a point of view of, I don't think, well, in Australia, it's a little bit different here in the States, but in Australia, there's definitely a sense of religion, everything about it being based on wanting to, proselytize people, or like to kind of bring people into the flock, which is understandable, because if you believe what you believe and you think the message is good, you wanted to give it to people.
Yeah.
But the way we've done that as a church over generations has sometimes been harsh, and I think it's easy to go, well, hang on, you say one thing, but you live a different way, and that's fine. I understand why there's blockages there, because actually I believe the church for the longest time has built walls that shouldn't be there. And this sense of like, we need to separate ourselves from the big bad world, and live righteous lives. It's actually not what the message is. It's very, very different. It's a counterfeit version of what we believe. And so, having said that, I understand why. And, if anything, I feel like the reason I'm still here and the reason I love doing this, obviously I believe in what it is, and I love being able to, express creatively what I feel and what I believe and what's going on in me. One of the things I love is actually the journey of maybe being able to kind of help over time, spin or kind of just at least chip away at some of those stereotypes from both sides. And I think that's, in our culture in this day and age, it's really important for us to continue to kind of look not just from our side of the fence and go, oh, why not, why me, why this, or you're that, and actually begin to kind of, true empathy is getting on someone's level and looking at through their eyes. And I think that is at the core of our message. And it goes to every extreme. And so I'm trying to go, all right, I see where you're coming from. Can I get you a muffin? I don't know.
Let me do something nice for you. I think we've got a few questions from the audience.
Sorry. It seems like whenever you guys get together to do an album, you guys all kind of already are on the same page, because we believe in God and we believe He's speaking the same message to everyone. And I really like the theme, by the way. It reminds me of like Coldplay. It's my favorite band, so. So I was thinking about what is in your hearts for like the future. Like now that you guys did Israel worship nights, would you do something like that in India because of Bijou Therapy? And I was just thinking about, like creation, creator, and, the never-ending story of, our, relationship with Him, and has sons and daughters, we get to create. So what is in your guys' hearts?
I'll quickly say, in the last 18 months, we did a worship night in Mumbai on the beach there. It was absolutely amazing, outdoors, open air event. That was incredible, and spent time with Bijou Therapy, who runs an amazing organisation in the slums there in Mumbai. I think for us, the challenge is actually not to get safe, and comfortable, and that means not being kind of stuck in what makes sense, because it was never the sensical things that kind of got us to where we are. It was kind of just the foolish things. I think actually it was our naivety that kind of made a way for us to kind of be here. And so in the early days, before we ever traveled around America, we spent tons of time in Africa, Rwanda, Uganda, South America. And on the Israel trip, the Israel part was just one part of it. Yeah. We also went to Bahrain, Dubai. We did 2 nights in Dubai in an open air tennis arena. There was 12,000 people. And they were singing super loud. And I'm sitting there going, the world is an amazing place, and every single person matters. And I think the message and the beauty of music is it can connect with people across cultures, across borders, across the lines that we tend to draw. And so we want to keep pursuing that.
I think we've got one more question.
Hi. When you're writing a song, do you write the music first and have the music shape the message, or do you find the message first and then have the message shape the music?
It's like the classic question, and it's a good one. Both, and I think sometimes for me, it's just it's like you just process everything. Like I get inspired watching the news, even when it's terrible. I get inspired in conversations. Like I get inspired just chatting and wherever we are and walking down the street and watching people. And I get really inspired in airports because you just got. I look at people and I go, where are they coming from and where are they going? Everyone's going somewhere.
Yeah.
And some people are going to funerals, and some people are going to meet someone that they've fallen in love with online, and they're really excited, but they're also nervous.
Please don't be a catfish, please.
Exactly. That fascinates me, and I think if anything, there's no greater inspiration in the world than people, if we're willing to actually kind of look into this, who they are in their story, and ask questions, and that's what wonder is to me. It's actually about recognizing that there is so much beauty to be found in the world, if you choose to see it, and it is a choice. And so it's all of those things. To answer your question real short, it's usually music, and then it's a process of just trying to get these thoughts into the melody.
And really quick though, so JD and Taya, there's 3 of you here. How many in Hillsong United? Like 10 or something, isn't there?
Yeah, like 10 of us will usually take the platform.
Okay.
And then,
A lot of people behind the scenes that are legends helping,
And where are they now? They're in New York because we know you've got a concert on Sunday.
Yep.
2 concerts in Beacons Theatre, 5 and 8 p.m.
You're all
There
welcome.
you go. You don't have to
Free
sell it
tickets
yourself.
at the door. It's actually not free, but we tickets.
But yeah, one for everyone in the
I wish
audience.
it was.
Maybe not really. But is that like a migrating 10 people and you 3 are the main core all the time, or has it been the set 10?
well, I just think sometimes, like doing these kind of things, it's hard to get, fit
10
everyone
people.
in and
Yeah.
whatnot. So
Yeah.
I think we obviously, Joel leads this thing from the front, and we all do it with him.
And when it comes to songwriting, is it just Joel or is everyone involved?
It's definitely a collaborative
Yeah.
thing. There's a few guys, a guy called Matty, he's not here, and a few other teams. One thing that we've always done is, actually, we never started out as a band, like you're in the band and you're not. It was much more it was like, oh, you can sing here, sing this, you know what I mean? Or you can, and it's actually still been that way. So, Ji-Hae, who's with us now, she's like amazing. She's from Korea. She actually was her compassion child. Who ended up kind of getting out of poverty and ended up in London.
What's a compassion child?
Well,
Am I ignorant? Not
Yeah,
know this,
I'm
or-
trying to think, like World Vision, huh? Sponsored child.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Her father was.
Her father was.
Her father was, and then because of someone's generosity from some other country, just sponsoring, I think it's like $30 a month, just so they could get education, and then it ended up bringing them out of poverty, and then so they were living in London, and it's pretty amazing because we actually we have partnered with them as a church as well, and so it was kind of amazing, someone sharing a story and then going, actually, Ji-Hae's dad is like, and Ji-Hae is basically a miracle of that, so...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she ended up in London. We have a church in London. She kind of played bass guitar there for years, and then she ended up going out with Ellie Goulding, and she was playing keys for Ellie Goulding and wearing these crazy outfits. And we're like, Ji-Hae, and then we need a new bass player, and it's like I love every single person. We've never recruited anybody. It's all actually just people who've kind of grown up or been around the church.
Come together and they all want to be part of it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, guys. I could chat to you all day, but we only have time for this. But best of luck with everything and the album. And again, Sunday, Beacons Theatre, for everyone who's interested. Thank you.
Thanks
Thanks
for
for having us,
being here,
guys.
guys. It's so good.